to tell you about the changing circumstances. Very well said by Clausewitz, who says strategy is the evolution of a central idea through continually changing circumstances. And this is precisely what I am going to look at, how we have to define our business model, because what's changing. Now, what's changing is made of facts and of emotions. Schopenhauer used to say the following: few people know how to think, but everyone wants to have an opinion. And I think this is precisely what we have to deal with, a lot of opinions today, shaping the business environment. And this is very well explained by this little cartoon where you have on one side people who have the choice to go to a theater, an inconvenient truth, nobody's there, and on the other one, a reassuring lie, and everybody's going there. And I think this is what people are looking at today. It's, frankly speaking, the emotional part of the business environment. So I'm going to try to look at that, keeping in mind what the French writer André Gide said one day. He said, you know, actually, when an economist answers a question, then we usually don't remember what the question was. So I'm going to try to make sure that you remember the answers and the questions and everything. So fasten your seatbelt, and here we go. The world economy. Why are we speaking about the fractured world economy in general? It's because we had a golden age, which started in 1978 with the China open door policy, which lasted about 40 years, where the economy was open, fast, cost efficient, until the pandemic, the COVID. And then during this unique period of time, we had a proliferation of direct investment around the world, number one. And number two, which is important, size was not a constraint. Very important. Anybody could play the game independently of its size, whether as a company or whether as a country. And this kind of extraordinary environment, which we had not seen before, actually didn't last too long, 40 years, and was succeeded by the age of vulnerability. And vulnerability was because simply when you are in this situation, specialization means vulnerability. It was very well explained by President George Bush, who, after a long period of reflection, came to the following conclusion. He said, the problem is that more and more of our imports come from overseas. Actually, I miss him. Huh? I think it was a day where we had fun a little bit with politics. So I think that when we started with that, we had to come to the conclusion that we moved from an economy of just in time to an economy of just in case thing goes wrong. And now we are in a fractured world. So what does it mean to be in a fractured world economy for all of us? It means, number one, the world is still global, but number two, the rules are not global anymore. And this is very important, because what it will mean is that we are going to see a multiplication of legislation, of rules, of industrial policies, which are going to trigger a confrontation of economic system and geopolitics. The key issue in this type of environment is arbitrage. What is happening if you disagree with somebody? Who is going to step in and solve the problem? And we see it now with the various issues coming around the world. This is really the issue of arbitrage. So actually, there are a few things we have to keep in mind on this new business model. Number one, we are all speaking about tariffs. Yes, this is a very big issue. The other big issue definitely is market access. Today, governments are telling which markets can be accessed, and if they tell you you cannot have access to the markets, what can we do? The second thing which is important, we used to have an economic debate around the world which was basically on job protection, and when you had an issue, you would go to the international, to the World Trade Organization. Today, more and more, the debate is a political debate, and it is about all national security. If you take the US, have been blocking TikTok, blocking Huawei, not because they are killing jobs, but because they are a threat to national security. Now, the big issue is, how do you define national security? Because all of us, we have a different definition for our own country. And this is where things are becoming very difficult, and where, to a certain extent, it affects multilateralism. And some people are saying multilateralism is dead. Maybe not. I think that we are going into a world of multi-layers. Number one, you are going to see still global organization where you need to have 180 people in the room to take a decision, which never happens, of course. But this is a World Trade Organization. This is the International Labour Organization. Fine. They will remain, even if they are going to be weaker. Next to them, you are going to have an organization, bilateral agreements. Countries or group of countries going to bilateral agreements. China, we will come back to that. Of course, Europe, you have seen the Uruguay, you have seen the deal with South Africa, South America. I will make it. Sorry, it's after lunch for me also. So we are going to see all these kind of things happening, and bilateral agreements are going to be more and more there. But what is new now, and what is interesting, is ad hoc coalition, which means a small group of countries which are going to get together, 7, 8, 9, 10, in order to move fast on a very specific issue and having their own rules. This is, for example, on defense with the coalition of the willing on Ukraine. This is also a coalition on coal, on wood. We have the latest one is on nuclear energy. More and more, we are going to be in a situation where we are going to see more and more of this ad hoc coalition. You have seen Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, has been really an advocate to this kind of things. We need to go fast, and we cannot go fast if we are 27 or if we are 190. And therefore, we are going to go into a world which is going to be very different, but not all that different. This is Albert Einstein. He used to teach in my country, Switzerland, for a long time. And Einstein had a problem. At every single exam, he would come with the same questions for the students, which is nice for the students, but it's not so good for the rest. So his advisor here, his student said, okay, professor, we have a problem, always the same question. And Einstein had this beautiful answer. He said, you're right, the questions are the same. However, the answers have changed. And I think this is precisely what we are saying. A lot of the questions seems to be the same of 5 years or 10 years ago, but the answers are very different today. And this is what we are going to try to go that. All right, so let's look. Are you still alive? You will need it. Big players, who are those big players? Now, I think that if you are looking at what's happening in the world of today, the empire strikes back. The empires, there are three: the US, Europe as a bloc, and China. Altogether, they are 58% of the world economy. So Europe is powerful. But more than economics, they are powerful in political power, in finance, in technology, and military. And I think that makes it a kind of power which is very diverse and more than economics. When you are looking at the situation, one of the very new things coming in is defense economics. These are the numbers. We don't have the latest one for 2025 about the spending on defense, but it's growing about 9-10% a year. If you are looking at the US and China, 49% of the military spending of the world, so this is enormous. And if you are looking at the number, I will come back on the one on the US, it is telling they are enormously different. And finally, keep in mind, if the objective is 5% of defense spending, which are going to go as related to GDP, it's not only about military spending. It's also about infrastructure, it's about bridges, it's about roads, it's about technology, it's about all kinds of things which are around just making tanks. And this is going to be quite remarkable for the future. We have to keep that in mind when we speak about defense economics. How we are going to finance it is another story. At the end of the day, Henry Kissinger used to say the following. He says, you know, the real point, it's in a book of his called Diplomacy. It's a very big book. One day somebody told me, you know, I don't know if Henry Kissinger is a good writer, but certainly anybody who gets at the end of his book is a good reader. It's big stuff. But he said a few things interesting, especially this one. Empires have no interest in acting in the context of an international system. They want to be themselves the international system. So all these countries will say, my rules prevails the other rules. The question is, what are we doing ourselves when we are smaller nations? Yours, Belgium, the Netherlands, mine, Switzerland, when we are dealing with those big blocks. And this is really the issue for the future. So what is a big game? How are we going to see in this game who is bluffing and who is winning? And I'm going to show you here the GDP because it's important to find out what is the dynamic of the economy. Keep in mind, those numbers are now completely obsolete and wrong, but still, if I don't show it to them, you are going to say why you didn't show them. So I show them. So here we are. This is GDP growth, 12 months period of time. Sorry, and the little arrows tell you if it's going up or down during the last quarter. The US, 2.2% going down, and you see Latin America, everybody is going down on the American continent. In Europe, 1.2% globally, you see everybody is going down. Germany is picking up a little bit, but Germany has been in a recession for a long time, but it's picking up a little bit, probably because of defense spending. And you are looking at everybody else, the situation is not quite extraordinary. Asia, China starts to lower also its forecast on economics. And you see some countries are going up because they are benefiting from the technological boom. Taiwan and Malaysia and everybody. So altogether, sorry, the big blocks, you can see situation is not very good. And that was before the war in Iran. So now I can imagine what is going to happen next. Of course, numbers are not very good. It's always better to look at ideas behind numbers. This is John Kenneth Galbraith, used to be the advisor of President Kennedy. And he used to say the following. He said, you know, the only function of economic forecasting is to make astrology respectable. And when you see the number of times they are reviewing those numbers, you say, really, this is astrology. So don't take them too seriously, all right? Radar screen on inflation now. You look at inflation, this is where Belgium is now. And if you are looking at the situation around the world, this is where the other countries are. We had a slowdown, and then it's going up again. And the big debate, of course, with what's happening with the Strait of Hormuz, etc., is to what extent are we going to go back into a situation of inflation? If you are looking at the large countries, China, which used to be almost in deflation, is going up again now. The US is more. Everybody is seeing a revival of inflation. If you are looking at countries which are almost in deflation, only one, Taiwan. Then my country, Switzerland, almost, and Sweden and Denmark, very close to zero of inflation. Two countries, are outside the chart. It is that's a good stuff for you to look at if you know really your flags, right? Turkey and Argentina, very good. How much? No, they are above 30, 34, both of them. But that's okay. Argentina used to be at 120. Huh? Oh. It's a big improvement. How do you manage an economy with 34% inflation is another story, okay? So what is the definition of inflation? If somebody asks you, you could say the following. Inflation is paying 40 euros for an haircut, which used to cost 20 euros when you had hair. I'm sorry, sir, but this is no personal experience, of course. Okay, what you have to keep in mind about inflation is the following. It's like when you fly a plane. Vertical speed, inflation goes up. Stabilization is when you are up, which means the following. You can have a high level of inflation and and the price stays high because suddenly you have a plateau. And it means that in terms of politics, what really matters today is not inflation, it is the cost of living. This is where people are sensitive and what makes a government succeed or do not succeed. And if you are looking at the numbers, and these are the numbers for the United States of America, the changes in prices during the past few years, since 2020, we are all in double digit, around 30%. if you are looking at everything else, and that's what I said, you can have later a copy and you can look at that quietly, every single item is becoming very high, while the average real wages were 3.7%. And this is why people are furious, because they say, actually, my affordability, which is a new term, more than inflation, has been diminishing with time. I cannot afford as many things as before. This is a very big issue now in the US. So, question, are you worried about the situation, sir? You. Are you worried? Tell me. A bit. Well, you are like a politician, huh? I need Madame over there. Are you worried with the glasses? Yes, you. You're worried? Okay. You, sir? Okay, I give you the answer. The answer is there. Relax, my broker says the economy will bounce back. Answer, but I am your broker. Okay. Let's go about the US now. Let's look what the US can do. I'm going to give you the external view. The external view about the US is nothing is free. If you want to have access to the consumer, you have to pay a tariff. If you want to have access to technology, you have to invest. If you want to have access to the dollar, you have somehow to help us managing it. And for the military, you have to contribute. Nothing is free, because everybody has to help to reduce the deficit, the debt, and the taxes. This is what the government is telling the rest of the world. Second perception from outside, it's a zero-sum game. And what the administration is telling everybody is, number one, if the winners export and the losers import, which is, from an economic point of view, completely stupid. Because actually, you import because this is a strategic choice to buy rather than produce. I'll give you an example. Take, for example, and everybody is speaking about that, about the iPhone and the iPhone 17. You have 187 suppliers around the world. Most of them are from China or the region. Only 30 suppliers are not involved with China, so everybody is in the region. And the point is, you have 5% are coming from the US. If you would make the iPhone 100% American made, it would cost $3,500. That's why you buy outside. It's just a strategic choice. Everybody knows that, except some people in Washington. But everybody knows that. Other things, trade deficit, which you see here. We are the US trade deficit, $900 billion. The surplus of China, and we will come back to that, 1.2 trillion, increasing by 27.5% with Europe during the first 2 months of the year. Because since China cannot go to the US anymore, they go to Europe. And this is a big challenge for us. Look at that. Two countries, Vietnam and Ireland. Vietnam, how many people are there in Vietnam? What? What did you say? Tell me. 100 million? You're absolutely correct. Congratulations. Since you know it well. Ireland, how many people? No, 5.5. Can you imagine that Ireland is one of the biggest exporters into the United States of America? Can you imagine the amount of Guinness beer they have to export to get there? But actually, the idea is the following. It's not Irish company exporting. It's American one, which are located in Ireland, re-exporting. And we are confusing all the time the origin of an export or an import with the ownership. It's completely different. If we would make the difference, that would be different. So we will see that. So what happened with the tariffs? Number one, customs confusion. Poor guys, they don't know anymore what tariffs to apply, where it comes from, what it is. And when they understand what's happening, the president says, stop, I've changed my mind. Tariff circumventions, you try to avoid them by going from one place to the other. Keep in mind, Southern Ireland is part of the European Union. Northern Ireland is part of the UK, two different tariff rates and no customs in between. So everybody is playing the game, new trade routes, new financial flows, and complete complexity and confusion in the middle. If you are looking at the impact on US consumer, because this is a big debate, who is going to pay for these tariffs? Actually, it's called the pass-through. The Federal Reserve thinks 86 to 94% of the American consumer are paying for it. The Congressional Budget Office, 70%, and the International Monetary Fund think actually the US consumer are paying for everything. So actually, it's a tax on US consumer more than anything else. But of course, nobody is going to say it in the US. If you are looking at the next step is to find out whether the tariffs are legal or not. On the 20th of February, the Supreme Court had to decide whether it was correct to give broad authority to the president or whether it should be limited in sectoral. They decided it's illegal to give a broad authority. It has to be sectoral and limited in time. And actually, the big issue is, does it open the door to economic compensation? $170 billion probably there. So you can bankrupt the government if you do that. So this is a very thing which is open for the future. Then the US national debt, $38 trillion. What is interesting is that about 10%, $9 trillion are held by foreign nations. And if you are looking at this ownership, look at who is the biggest creditor of the United States of America today: Japan, the United Kingdom, and China now. And what the big news is that China used to be number one 2 years ago, and now they are going down and down, and they are selling, and they are selling, and they are selling on the market dollars. That's why the dollar is weak. And what do they buy instead of dollars? Gold. And that's why gold is going up. Huh? So you have a lot of this game which is being played elsewhere. The other thing that they are trying to do, and it will be the challenge to the next guy at the Fed, is going to say the following. If we have so much debt, in order to reduce the interest rates, we are going to ask the central bank to get down on interest rates, so we pay less in interest. The problem is the following, is that if the Federal Reserve is not independent anymore, who is going to fight inflation? Nobody. And that's why the inflation forecasts are going up in the US. So the dollar itself, as you can see, these are which currency are used around the world for trade now. It's still 49% the dollar. China is going up, 7%. It has doubled in 3 years. If you look at the central bank reserve, 58% are still in dollar. And finally, 8.1% in a basket of currency is a drop of the dollar during the past 12 months. So the dollar is still the currency of the world, but for the moment, it used to go down. It has gone up a little bit 2 days ago. Now, the attractiveness of the US market. And that's why it's important for Europe, because this is what we are against. If you are looking at European enterprise, they continue to invest massively into the US. Look at those numbers. The revenues is 20% of the revenues of large company in Europe come from the US. 3 million jobs are employed by a European company in the US. Now, what is interesting is that the American company are also falling in love with the American market. And they are reducing. 2016, 44% was basically invested in the US, now 69%. Why is it the case? Because everybody is going out of China. So people leave China and they go back to the US, whether they are European or American company. This is what is changing. In terms of financial assets, also as you can see, 15% of all the stocks in the US are held by foreign people. So it's going fast. Now, the question is how people are reacting about that. When you ask people, are you happy in saying that manufacturing jobs are good for the country? What is the answer? Yes or no? Yeah, of course. 80% are saying, yes, this is very good for the country. Next question, do you want one of these jobs? Answer, certainly not, 73%. Don't want that. So this is a problem we have. If you are looking now, the real business, the trump card, These are those five. This was last Friday. Market capitalization of those five companies, $17 trillion. It is more, 40% more than the largest bank of the world together, that the energy company. It's 15% of the world capitalization of the 10 largest companies of the world, five companies only. This is incredible. And actually, we tend to forget what is after those one. If you look, this is during the past months. The rest is okay, but not extraordinary. So we have a kind of focus on 5, 7 companies around the world, and the financial markets are only buying those. And this is why it can go up and down very dramatically, because people are saying, what happens if they suddenly start to collapse? And if you look at the household saving in stocks, and you find that in the US, 33% of the US is holding stocks, Europe 21%, and China 10%. So if the market collapses, the household will be suffering a lot. And this is where people are really worried about that. Okay, that was the US. Maybe, I don't know if it was clear enough about what I have said, but keep in mind what President Harry Truman said one day. If you don't understand it, he said, you know, if you cannot convince them, then confuse them. So I hope you are highly confused at that stage, okay? Yes? Am I confused?
No, you're not confused.
No, that's all right. I still continue China. And here we go on China. China, the big problem, collapsing of the market. Boom. This was a real estate market. Why? Number one, because real estate is 29% of the GDP of China. So when the real estate market collapses, everybody is panicking. 70% of the household savings. Why? Two reasons. Number one, because a lot of people have been migrating from rural to urban, to the cities. You had to lodge them. Second one, which is very interesting, is social explanation. Because in China, a young man who wants to get married has to bring to his wife a flat or a house. So he has to invest first in real estate before he can get married. And this is why everybody has been looking at that. So the question is the following. When the market collapsed, China said, okay, I have to diversify. And they diversified in the next generation of technology, which is electrical cars, batteries, etc. The problem is the following. The private consumption in China is 37% of the GDP. It's about 70% in Belgium, all right? And therefore, if you cannot have your local market absorbing as much new production, what do? The oversupplies, you get more exports. And that's where we are now. They export a lot because the domestic market cannot absorb that. And you are going to see that with electrical cars. It's quite striking. Electrical cars have been doubling in production in China over the past 3 years. 3 years, doubled. Today, you have already 31 factories of Chinese companies making cars outside China. They focus, but especially outside the US. Take Tesla and BYD. Tesla, 126,000 employees. BYD, 920,000. Take BYD, they have 120,000 people employed in R&D only. Imagine every morning you have 120,000 people going to the office and you tell them, please find something. Then what happened? Statistically, one of those guys has to find something. Right? And what did they find? They found that they should manufacture those things. Huh? They found that you can have now, I need your help. You can now, can you hear me now? Okay, I go like that. You can really have a car being recharged in 5 minutes, which is the same. Tesla, you know, Xiaomi, I saw they were doing phones, now they do cars. But look at the rest of them. Li Auto, L6, never heard of those guys. So you have an explosion of companies in China. It reminds me of what happened, in the US. In 1905, you have 60 electrical cars company in the US. You had wonderful companies and cars, Columbus Electrics, Baker Electrics. Look at this advertising. Ladies, be patriotic, drive your own Detroit Electric. Look at the other one. UP Eats Electric, see how beautiful this car is. Let the price be a pleasant afterthought. Those guys, they knew how to do marketing, especially when you see on snow. I would never drive a car like that on snow, but that's another story. So, what about Europe? Because this is what we are all discussing. Can we unchain Europe in this kind of environment? So, number one, the big obsession of Europe is social peace. And if you are looking at defense relative to social protection, it was called the peace dividend. We have invested massively here into social protection and not at all in defense. And now we have to backtrack somehow. The other attitude is that people expect more from the state than ever. And actually what people are saying is that the state should protect me against inflation, against recession. Actually, I don't care about what's happening as long as the state is going to protect me against that. So I don't care if there is inflation or recession. Now, the best explanation of this situation was given by another intellectual, which I would like to quote now. Mike Tyson was asked one day, how do you feel when you are going on a fight? And he said the following, he said, sir, they can hit me as hard as they can. I do not feel anything. And this is the point. We are in a situation where people say, I don't care as long as you protect me. The obsession is to regulate in Europe. This is a number of regulations, as you know, being passed every year by the European Union. And actually, the mindset is very different. I think that in the US, they innovate first and then they regulate. In Europe, we regulate and then we innovate if we can. And I think we have to reverse that and to let companies innovate, and then we see what happens. But we cannot do the contrary. We are killing innovation in Europe. So how do you find the money? Which debt? If you are looking at all the large countries in the world, all of them have more than 100% of the GDP in debt. Everybody went into debt. The large country went into debt. Belgium also. So Belgium is a large country. So it's very easy to be a large country today. So you go into debt. The question about debt, and the very big issue is the following. The big issue is interest payment. Look at the US. The US, they devote 15% of their budget just on the interest on debt. This is equal of money that they spend on defense. Look how France next door. In France, they spend 16% of the budget on the interest of debt. This is equal to the budget of national education in France. You start the year, 15% on the side. This is crazy. So this is a very big issue for the future. Should government worry about debt level? That's a big issue. Should they worry? Madam, here. You think so, huh? Yes, sir. Yes? Okay, I'm going to give you the answer. Here is any young man, an artist in the United States of America, one day very famous. The other day, lost all his money, was almost bankrupt. People come to him and say, how do you feel about this situation of being almost bankrupt? His answer was the following. Things could be worse. I could be one of my creditors. If you want to get bankrupt, make it big, not small. New horizon for growth. The flow of trade has changed, no doubt. We are in a situation where, as I mentioned before, China decreased on the US and increased on Europe and the rest of the world. China has already 24 free trade agreements, 40% of the exports. And it has changed very quickly. Look at Brazil here. Brazil already today makes two-thirds of its trade with China and not the US. The people are changing very fast what they are doing. If you are looking at imports around the world, the US is only 14% of the imports of the world, while the rest of the world obviously is 86%. So I think there's a lot of opportunity elsewhere, still in the US, but elsewhere. But of course, it's not a cozy environment. The rise of Altasia, we're always speaking about China, but these are the countries around China. Look how numerous they are, 1.4 billion people. If you are looking at the manufacturing labor cost in China, it's exploding now. We are far higher than these countries. So everybody start to look now about Philippines, Malaysia, India, Thailand, because there is a lot of potential. It is where China used to be many years ago, and they are very motivated. Another big players might be the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Everybody is talking about it now. Imagine this is the available land. They have 120% the superficie of Western Europe. Young population, 60% under 30 years old. A huge amount of money available. And finally, fast decision making. And this is a huge competitive advantage when you can take decision quickly on something. And here I think people are going to see after the war that Saudi Arabia has a lot of things to play with. We are going to be in a world of city. If you are looking at all those cities around the world, this is the population around the world. Jakarta, 42 million people. Can you imagine? How do you manage a city of 42 million people? It's impossible now. Look at all the other ones. Most of them are developing countries. Look at the mega region when they get together. The Pearl River Delta is 86 million people. 86 million. It's gigantic. So there is a challenge of management for those cities. The globalization of the chain will be exposed to politics, more complex, more vulnerable, less efficient, more expensive, and less global. It's all about nearshoring, friendshoring, reshoring, and actually the question, sorry, is which one? This is a lady. She says, we outsource it to India, then they outsource it to China. Who outsource it to Korea? Who outsource it to Mexico? And then they outsource it back to us. A lot of people start to say, to have the business next to us is not bad either. New paradigms for growth before I conclude. Number one, the electrification of the economy is the name of the game, no doubt. And if you are looking today already, China is producing 2.5 times more electricity than the US. China is producing 4 times more electricity than the European Union. Within the electrification of the economy, the greening of it is absolutely crucial. Zero carbon generation, investment, this is what it is. But what is interesting is that the production investment aspect, wind, solar, is huge, 1.3 trillion. But what we forget is the grid. The grid is a very traditional business with copper, with everything, and this is half of the investment. So we are not speaking only about advanced technology, we are speaking also about traditional technology. If you are looking at solar energy, there is no doubt that China is in the driving seats. You look here, 1,200 gigawatts already installed. Look how many they installed per year compared to the US and compared to Europe. It's enormous. So here we are late. Despite that, in Europe, we are good on electricity, just electricity production. On non-fossil fuel, it's going very nice. We are at 75%. So China is trying to catch up being late. All right, the big issue now, data centers. Keep in mind, 6 bigger world electricity consumers this year, enormous. This is the biggest one in the US and elsewhere. Northern Virginia, do you know why? What do you have in Northern Virginia? Exactly, the Pentagon, the CIA, and everybody is there. So they have huge data centers. Take Ireland, already they have 92 data centers, and they absorb an enormous amount of energy, because this is the issue. Actually, a quest on artificial intelligence today is 10 to 100 times more electricity than a browser search. And this has an enormous impact on the countries, because if you are looking not only on the electricity, but on water. These are in the US, the new data centers, which you have in California, Arizona, and Texas. They are all in place where you don't have water. So they are actually making the system even worse than before. And then you have the security aspect. As we see now with the war, look at, these are the issues. You have 36 data centers in Saudi Arabia, 34 in the UAE. And if you want to destroy them, it's very simple. You cut the electricity, you cut the water pipes, they're outside, and you just wait for them to close. You don't even have to bomb them. So people start to see the security aspect is enormous. And this security aspect is very big because there is a totally different approach. Remember in the good old days, cyber insecurity, you had the father was in the office and he was watching TV. The kid was bored. He was in the garage. And since he was bored, he was destroying the Pentagon. Now, we have professionals writing, going on cyber insecurity. And these professionals are working 8 hours a day in a normal company, attacking the rest of the world. We think we have in Russia alone about 100 to 150 companies which are just making cyber attacks. So this is professional. Very difficult and very different. Is it a bubble today? I don't know. Some of you may remember the bubble of the year 2000. This is what it used to be. We don't make money. We are just attractive to high-risk investors. Today, there is a lot of investment behind. If you are looking at what's happening, Foxconn, VIDIA factory in Mexico, it's $900 million. If you are looking at the investment of only those 4 companies, it's $660 billion. So the market is getting worried because they say, how do we get the money back on all this investment? Do we have enough business for that? And that's why people are a bit shaky. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will be in a world online, no doubt. This is the name of the game. Everybody is speaking in the new generation, they spend 10 hours and 39 minutes online. 90% of them are checking their smartphone within 15 minutes of waking up. If you do that yourself, it means you are young. I'm sure we're all doing it, right? 65% prefer losing their car rather than their phone. Why? Because the car belongs to the parents. 81% are anxious to make a phone call. Have you seen that? You call them, they never answer. 2 seconds after, you receive a WhatsApp message. What do you want? Intellect property is going to be really put into question. This is a film festival in Cannes. The little groupie is telling his favorite actor, I love your movies. I have pirated them all. Okay. I think that the consequence of that are going to be that if you take internet, smartphone, social media, everybody is on the 3, everybody. So the issue is, number 1, e-commerce. How open will it be? Number 2, data centers, who on what and where? Number 3, artificial intelligence, where will it stop? And number 4, cyber and security, how safe can it be? These are going to be the challenge, and maybe it will have an impact on people. This is the HR manager telling the young guy who wants to work in the company, have you considered becoming an android? Maybe this is it. Okay, let me conclude. Few points. Number 1, the business model is going to be, in my opinion, moving from business efficiency to business reliability. This is what it is all about. And we need the stability of supplies. We will need cost efficiency and security of assets. Very important. Number 2, if you are looking at the consequence for companies, it's very simple. Number 1, diversification. Number 2, resilience. Number 3, reliability. Number 4, pricing power. Having the ability to pass the prices to the consumer. What does it mean? Trying to identify who are the monster under the bed. Who will be your competitors tomorrow? First question. Number two, where will they come from? This is going to be the other big issue. And therefore, keep in mind, there is a time for innovation, but there is a time for excellence in implementation. The next time you take a plane, think about me and tell yourself, the last thing you want to have in a plane is a pilot who has a sense of innovation. Somebody who is going to say, I have a new plane, let me show you what I can do with it. No. How can you achieve that? Well, any company at a certain stage, sophistication becomes nothing else than complexity. But we will never say that. And Peter Drucker said one day the following, which I like very well. He said, there is nothing so useless as doing efficiently something that should not be done at all. How many times do we do that, huh? Decisions matter. You have to decide, even if it is uncertain. One day somebody told me the following. He said, I have a problem in my company. In my company, we study a good idea until it becomes a bad one. Any idea, if you spend enough time on it, will become a bad idea. There is a moment, stop thinking, just do it. Two things before I finished. Number one. By the way, this is Henri-Frédéric Amiel. This is a Swiss philosopher. We have one. Here he is. You see the watch is Swiss. And he said the following. He said, the man who insists on perfect clearness before he decides actually never decides. We have to accept the uncertainty level. And to conclude, one day Mark Twain was invited to listen to an opera of Richard Wagner, goes into the opera house, listens to the music, goes out, the press is there and asks, Mr. Twain, what do you think about the music of Richard Wagner? And his answer was, actually, it's not as bad as it sounds. I think the world economy is not as bad as it sounds. There's a lot. Good luck to all of you. Thank you.